Welcome to the deep dive where we dig into some fascinating sources and pull out the really crucial insights for you. Makes things a bit easier to grasp.
Exactly. And today, we've got quite a story. It's ancient, but wow, it feels surprisingly relevant.
Yeah, it involves a group of women, some drinking, and then this kind of wild intervention by a divine figure, all set against, early Buddhist teachings.
That's the one. We're looking at parts of the Visākhāyasahāyikāvatthu, which you find in the Charavagatana and the Dhammapada. Basically, the story of Visākha's companions.
Okay, Visākhā. She's a big name in early Buddhism, right? A lay disciple.
A very prominent one, yeah.
So our mission for this deep dive, really get into the story, figure out the message, and, well, see what this old tale tells us about ourselves today. Behavior, accountability, maybe even those unexpected wake-up calls.
So let's set the scene first. We're in Sāvatthī, or Sāvatthī, specifically at Jetavana, Jedda's Grove. This was a key monastery. The Buddha spent a lot of time there.
Got it. And Visākhā's there, too. The sources mention something about 500 young men entrusting their wives to her.
That's right. They trusted her guidance, hoping she'd help their wives live more mindfully, sort of learn the ropes of the practice.
So these women would often go with Visākhā to gardens, monasteries, part of a routine.
Seems like it. A regular thing, suggesting, some level of community and maybe spiritual engagement already.
But then things take a turn. A festival is announced.
Yes, a 7-day alcohol festival. And interestingly, the text mentions the women themselves help prepare the alcohol for their husbands.
Huh. That tells you something about the social norms back then, doesn't it? Not necessarily prohibitionist across the board.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a good reminder that attitudes towards alcohol really vary.
So the husbands have their week-long party, basically.
They do. And then on day 8, it's back to work, back to normal life.
Okay, here's where it gets interesting. Maybe a little relatable.
Yeah, maybe. The husbands are gone, and the women look at the leftover alcohol. They hadn't drunk in front of their husbands, but now...
Now's their chance. The coast is clear.
Pretty much. They hatch a plan. They decide to ask Visākhā if they can go to the garden.
Just a casual trip to the garden, of course. Nothing suspicious there.
Exactly. They tell Visākhā they've finished their chores, and she agrees. Maybe she just trusted them at this point.
Okay, but the garden visit wasn't just about the flowers, was it?
Not quite. They'd secretly brought the leftover booze with them.
Ah, so they have their own little party out there.
Yep, the texts say they drank and became intoxicated. Pretty straightforward.
And Visākhā eventually notices.
She does. Being perceptive, she realizes what's happened and that this behavior is, inappropriate. Could look bad for everyone associated with the Buddha.
Right, reflects poorly on the whole community, so she confronts them.
She does. Points out it's wrong, could damage her reputation, upset their husbands, and then she asks sort of, okay, what now? What are you going to do?
Giving them a chance to come clean, maybe?
Perhaps. But they don't take it. They spin a story about needing to visit a sick room, a Gilanaleya, as an excuse for, how they seem.
Trying to cover it up. Classic.
And Visākhā gives this very subtle warning. She says something like, then you will be known by your own actions. Ominous.
Ooh, yeah. Foreshadowing. So they go home and pretend to be sick.
That's the plan. They try to fake illness.
But the husbands aren't buying it.
They notice the sickness coincides with the end of the festival and, presumably, the disappearance of the leftover alcohol. They put 2 and 2 together.
And then...
Well, the texts are pretty blunt.
Yeah.
The husbands figure it out and beat their wives. It's quite harsh. A stark look at the power dynamics then.
Yeah, definitely a different time. So you'd imagine that's the end of the story. Lesson learned the hard way.
You'd think.
Yeah.
But no. Another festival comes along.
And the desire to drink pops up again.
It does. They actually ask Visākhā again if they can go to the garden.
Seriously? After what happened?
Seriously. But Visākha's not having it this time. She refuses, flat out. Reminds them how badly it went last time, the shame it brought.
Okay, so plan A is out. What's plan B?
Plan B is cleverer, or maybe sneakier. They ask Visākhā to take them to the monastery.
To the monastery? Why?
To perform a Buddha puja, they claim. An act of worship, offering respects to the Buddha.
Oh, that sounds much more respectable. Harder for Visākhā to refuse.
Exactly. Visākhā thinks, okay, this is appropriate. Going to the monastery for worship, that's fine. So she agrees.
But I sense a but coming.
There's definitely a but. They gather their offerings, flowers, incense, the usual things you'd bring, put them in baskets.
Standard practice.
Right. But hidden underneath big cloths in those baskets, bottles filled with alcohol.
Wow. They snuck it in, under the guise of making offerings.
They did. They arrive at the monastery with Visākhā, looking perfectly devout, find a quiet spot, quickly drink the alcohol, ditch the bottles.
And then just stroll into the Dharma assembly.
And then just join the group, sitting there before the Buddha, as if nothing's happened.
The audacity. So the Buddha's there, Visākhā's there, thinking these women are here for teaching.
And Visākhā, completely unaware of the pre-gaming that just happened, asks the Buddha to teach them.
Oh boy. What happens next?
Well, the alcohol kicks in. Right there in the assembly, the women start thinking about dancing and singing.
In front of the Buddha, while he's about to teach.
Yep. And it gets weirder. The story says a Māra-influenced deity, one of Mara's crew, like a force of temptation or disruption.
Māra, the tempter figure. Okay.
Right. This deity possesses the women, specifically to cause a scene to disrupt the Buddha.
Possessed. Whoa, so what did they do?
It turned chaotic. Some started clapping randomly, laughing loudly. Others actually got up and started dancing. Total disrespect right in the middle of the assembly.
That's quite a scene. How does the Buddha react to this?
He knows exactly what's going on, of course. He sees the intoxication. He sees the deity's influence. The text mentions his eons of cultivation virtues, like he's drawing on this immense inner strength. He's resolved not to let Mara's forces win here.
So what does he do? Magic.
Kind of feels like it. He emits a ray of light from his brow. And instantly, everything goes pitch black. Complete darkness.
Whoa, that must have been terrifying.
Absolutely. The women are suddenly plunged into darkness, totally scared. And in that shock, the text says the alcohol in their stomachs just digests, instantly sobered up by the fear and the darkness.
A miraculous sobering. Okay, so they're scared and sober in the dark. Then what?
Then something even more spectacular happens. The Buddha vanishes from his teaching seat.
Vanishes. Where does he go?
He reappears instantly on the summit of Mount Sinaro, this huge mythical mountain at the center of the Buddhist cosmos.
Okay, that's definitely divine intervention territory.
For sure. And from the top of Mount Sinaro, he sends out another beam of light, this time from his araya, that's the curl of hair between his eyebrows.
The one you see in statues.
Exactly. And this light isn't subtle. It's described as being like 1,000 suns rising at once. Incredibly bright, awe-inspiring.
Wow, so he's got their attention now, I imagine.
Completely.
Mm-hmm.
And then he speaks to them from the mountain peak. He tells them straight up, coming to him like this, heedless, intoxicated, it's just not acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
He points out their carelessness made them vulnerable to that Māra deity.
He calls them out on it. Does he offer guidance?
He does. He gives them a core instruction. Strive to put out the fires of passion and the ragadana agani.
Mm-hmm.
These are, greed, hatred, delusion, all the stuff that fuels suffering.
Extinguish the fires. Okay.
And then he delivers this really powerful verse. Konu haso, kimanando, nikapajalite sati, antakarena onada pa depana gavisatati.
Can you break that down for us?
Sure. It basically translates to, what's this laughter? What's this joy? When the world is constantly burning, you're shrouded in darkness, when do you seek a lamp?
Constantly burning with those fires of passion.
Exactly. The text explains that ando, joy, here means more like superficial satisfaction, diffy. So he's asking, how can you be laughing and feeling good when you're caught in these fires? And darkness is ignorance, avijja, and the lamp. The lamp is wisdom, yakapadepa. He's telling them, you're lost in the dark of ignorance, surrounded by the fires of suffering. Why aren't you looking for the wisdom that can light the way out?
That's quite a teaching. Delivered from a mountaintop in blinding light after sudden darkness and demonic possession. Talk about impact.
You could say that. And the impact was profound. The text says, right then and there, at the end of that teaching, all 500 women attained Sotāpatti.
Which is?
The first stage of enlightenment. Stream entry. It means they fundamentally understood the Dharma, broke certain fetters, and were irreversibly on the path to full awakening. A massive transformation.
Wow. From drunken disruption to stream entry. That's unexpected.
It really is. After seeing their faith was established, the Buddha just returned to his seat, back in the assembly.
And what about Visākhā? She must have been reeling.
She speaks to the Buddha then. She acknowledges the negative power of alcohol, the su'a, saying it caused these women to act so disrespectfully right in front of him.
Does the Buddha agree?
He does. He confirms that, yes, alcohol is harmful. It's led many people to ruin. It's a clear condemnation.
And then Visākhā asks something interesting, right? About where alcohol even came from.
Yeah, she asks us about its origins. And the Buddha, to answer that, doesn't just give a simple reply. He decides to tell a Jataka story.
One of his past life stories.
Exactly. He recounts the Kumbhajātaka, which apparently explains the origin of alcohol in detail.
Yeah.
Our sources don't give us that story today, but it shows the teaching moment extending even further back into mythic history.
Fascinating. Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive, what are the big takeaways from this wild story?
Well, several things jump out. The obvious one is the danger of, heedlessness, not being mindful, and the deceptive nature of intoxication, literally with alcohol, but maybe metaphorically too, right? Getting drunk on ego or desire.
Yeah, good point. There's other intoxications.
And it shows how negative influences, like that Māra deity, can grab hold when our own awareness is weak. We become vulnerable.
True. And Visākha's role is interesting too. She meant well, but her trust was exploited, leading to problems. It says something about guidance, doesn't it? Needing discernment.
Definitely. And that whole dramatic intervention, the darkness, the light, the mountain, it's an extreme way of showing consequences. Actions, even secret ones, have repercussions. Karma, accountability, it's all in there.
And ultimately, it all leads back to that core teaching, doesn't it? The need to deal with our fires, our greed, anger, ignorance, and seek wisdom, that lamp to see clearly.
That's the heart of it. So even though it's an ancient kind of fantastical story, you can see the relevance. It makes you think about your own life,
Yeah.
What are my intoxications? What clouds my judgment?
Right, what kinds of darkness might be affecting how I see things? And what are the lamps, the sources of wisdom or clarity that I could be seeking out more?
Exactly. It pushes you to self-reflect.
It really does. Okay, so here's a final thought for you, the listener, to chew on. Given how this ended, these women reaching the first stage of enlightenment right after this incredibly disruptive, frankly embarrassing episode, could it be that sometimes these big shakeups, these moments of maybe even shame or failure, can actually become catalysts, unexpected triggers for real growth, real insight? What might that look like in your own experience?
Something to ponder.
Definitely. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.